Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. We are making a new world now. We are making a new world now. Love you.
Well, that worked. Namaste, everybody. Hi, I'm Ann Cannett, your practitioner for today. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy that you all came. So if you'll just join me now as I offer the truth of our being. We just go within. Close your eyes if it feels comfortable. I always like to take that deep breath. Reminds me that I'm standing here in the presence. The spirit, the love, the joy, the happiness, the allness that God is right here, right now. We are love. We are joy. We are peace. We are that expression of love to the world. I know that as we come together today, we do so in a spirit of all good, all God. Smiles, happiness, joy. That's who we truly are. I know that this service today is for a blessing for each and every one of us. It also blesses those who aren't present today, those who have yet to come to this Center for Spiritual Living. It feels so good to know that we have a community family here that joins together to make such a beautiful place to be. I know that Merritt and Parisi, Dar, have all come here today to be of service to this beautiful spiritual community. It feels good to know that our own Sharon Whealy is giving our talk this morning from her heart, from her education, from her time spent in inner awareness. So very grateful for each and every person that has stepped through these doors today to come together to make this an amazing experience. It feels so good. It feels good to feel the sunshine today, to feel the clouds floating over, to breathe the fresh air, to know that we are that place where God's health and wholeness and wealth and wisdom and creativity reside. We are the expression here on earth of the divine. So very grateful for this truth and this awareness, and I simply let it be, and so it is. Amen. And now, help me welcome Dar for our inspirational music today. Merritt. Oh, that's right. Merritt's going to play for us. Dar's later.
I just want to say we had a request for this song, and so it's a piano instrumental, and it's called Velocity of Love.
Okay, perfect.
many microphones. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all here this morning. First, 20 after, Scott's like, nobody's going to come this morning. There we are. Which I assured him when I was a minister in Santa Rosa. Our congregation on Sunday got down to about 5 people, so I'm used to talking to small groups, but I'm so glad you all are here. So, with all the events of the coronavirus this morning, or this week, I was thinking that I needed to rewrite my entire talk. I had actually finished it last week so I could practice preparing. And I decided to just stick with the script. So originally I picked this date to talk because St. Patrick's Day is in a couple days, and I was going to talk about prosperity, because for me, St. Patrick's Day is not about the green beer and getting drunk, but about rainbows and pots of gold and Lucky Charms and all that fun stuff, right? But CSL, the home office, they set out themes for every month, and you may be aware at this point in the month that this month's theme is honoring the divine feminine in all. And this week's topic, every week, has a topic under that subheading, and the topic was womb as law. And just that word womb, I was like, oh, hell, I can't talk about that. No. It's something else. We'll go back to that. But whenever I resist something, I go into meditation and find out why. And when I looked at this in meditation, I was drawn to 1 Genesis 26 and 27. And then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, in our likeness." So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And so 1 Genesis talks about humanity being created in both gender forms. Now, immediately we go into the revisionist creation story, Genesis 2:4, where God creates everything in the garden and then creates man, Adam, to care for the garden. And then along the way notices that Adam's all alone and creates the helpmate, and we know that Eve comes from his rib in the story. And so this story sets up in our collective consciousness, this story that runs through our culture, that women are helpmates to man. We are that afterthought. And we know that the story continues, that they're tripping around in the garden and they're good friends with God. They're talking to God every day and they're having a great time. And then one day Eve comes along the tree of knowledge, one of those 2 trees that Adam was told don't eat from. You got no rules, just don't eat from this tree, the tree of knowledge, the other tree, the tree of life. And now Eve got all the rules secondhand through Adam, right? Because she wasn't there when Adam was given the rules, right? So she comes along the tree and she meets the serpent, and the serpent actually tells her the truth about the tree. If they eat from the fruit, they won't die. God said they'll die. And she looks at the fruit, and the snake's saying, no, you're not going to die. It's good fruit. And she's looking at it, and she takes a bite. Now, I love this because Adam is right there, because she turns and hands him the fruit. He never stops her from eating the fruit. He takes a bite. Then they become aware. They've eaten from the truths of knowledge, the tree of knowledge, so they become aware of themselves. They recognize that they are naked, that they are separated, and they come to know that they're also separate from God, because God comes along and says, wait, you ate from the one tree I told you don't. Well, one of the 2 trees that I told you specifically not to eat from. So then all this also sets up the blame game that we're all familiar with. Adam blames her. Well, she handed it to me. And then she's like, well, the snake told me to. So we have 2 things that are running through our cultural history from this early story. And whether you're a Christian, Hebrew, Jew, anything, this story runs through our culture. So women have been set up to be second-hand, second-class citizens. The Hebrew Bible then continues to essentially establish the male the patriarchal, I knew I was going to have trouble with this, monotheistic society with a male God. And interestingly, the Hebrew word for God actually is gender neutral. It's essentially like a table, it doesn't have that. But through translation, it has come to represent that man in the sky God that's going to judge you and throw you out of the garden. However, if you look closely through the stories, women continue to keep the goddess alive. They're mentioned throughout the Hebrew Bible of women worshiping the goddess Asherah. And Asherah is the goddess of fertility, and she's related to the Babylonian goddess Ishtar, who is the goddess of love. In Exodus 34:13, as they're moving through the new territory, they've left Egypt, they're looking for their new home, and the Lord's people are instructed to break down any altars, smash the Asherah poles that they come across as they're moving through this new country. My favorite story is in 1 Kings 18:19, which tells about Ahab and Elijah. And they gather up the 50 worshipers or prophets of Baal, the male godhead that the folks were worshiping, and the 400 Asherah worshipers, 400, and they're asked to either, worship their gods or convert. And the idea is really to convert to their monotheistic God. And so the story goes on that the Baal followers, the 50 prophets, are gathered up, and they're told to feast and worship and call out to their God so their God would do something. And their God never does. But eventually, after a few days of this, Elijah performs a ritual, calls down the Lord God, who brings down a giant fire onto the altar. And of course, those 50 were all converted. There's no mention about converting the 50 or the 400 Asherah worshipers. I just imagine they go on quietly worshiping their goddess of love and fertility. When we move into the New Testament, two prominent females emerge out of those stories. We have the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus, that image of female perfection. And then on the other hand, we have Mary Magdalene, who is the alleged prostitute, or the woman where Jesus cast out the 7 demons. So we have this dichotomy of female image, either perfect and you can do no wrong, or you're a whore. And yet, these are the images that are running through our culture. We know that many of Jesus' followers and his supporters were women, and that Jesus' teaching was inclusive. His mission was to bring in those on the outcasts, on the fringes, and Mary Magdalene was one of those outcasts, and yet she emerges as one of her truest followers. She is the only one that is mentioned at the gravesite in all 4 Gospels. In Matthew, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary is named. In Mark, Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, now we know who the other Mary is, and Salome is mentioned. In Luke, it's the women who came from Galilee, and they were later listed as Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, mother of James, and the others. And in John, Mary Magdalene goes to the gravesite alone. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, I love this. Many pages are missing from the historical document, but I want to read a passage that talks about this special relationship that she had with Jesus and with her fellow disciples. Peter said to Mary, "Sister, we know that the teacher loved you differently from other women. Tell us whatever you remember of any words he told you, which we have not yet heard." And Mary said to them, "I will now speak to you of that which has not been given to you to hear. I had a vision of the teacher, and I said to him, 'Lord, I see you now in this vision.' And he answered, 'You are blessed, for the sight of me does not disturb you.' Then I said to him, 'Lord, when someone meets you in a moment of vision, is it through the soul that they see you or through the spirit?' And the teacher answered, 'It is neither through the soul nor through the spirit, but the space in between the two which sees the vision.'" And then she goes on to relate this vision and her conversation with Jesus, which concludes with Jesus saying, "I left the world with the aid of another world, A design was erased by virtue of a higher design. Henceforth I travel toward repose, where the time rests in the eternity of time. I love that. I go now into silence. Having said all this, Mary became silent, for it was in the silence that the teacher spoke to her. Then Andrew began to speak and said to his brothers, "Tell me, what do you think about these things that she has been saying? As for me, I do not believe. I don't believe that the teacher would speak like this. These ideas are too different from those we have known." And then Peter added, "How is it possible that the teacher talked in this manner with a woman, about secrets of which we ourselves are ignorant? Must we change our customs and listen to this woman? Did he really choose her and prefer her to us?" I suggest the answer is yes. It is time that we listen to the divine feminine. In our own American history, our founding fathers were the landed white gentry, and eventually all white men could vote. Negro males were given the right to vote in February of 1870, almost 100 years later. And this year is actually the anniversary of women's right to vote, August of 1920. That's only 100 years ago. The civil rights movement of the 1960s led to the women's movement of the 1970s, and in present time, women are still fighting for equal wages and the right to choose. When I look at this in meditation, it occurs to me that when we deny or discount women or the feminine on the level of condition, on a humanness, spiritually, we're cutting ourselves off from source. We get stuck operating in the level of condition. And how many of us often find ourselves trying to solve things in our lives through condition? If only this thing would change, if only I could manipulate this, my life would be good or better. It could be great. Our teaching symbol, we also have one up there, has 3 levels. And when we're talking about this level of condition, we're talking about that lower level on our circle. This lower section is that place of body, of effect. It's the time and space. It reflects source. And it's the illusion of matter, or as I like to think, the illusion that matter matters. The upper section, I was actually going to make a PowerPoint for this. And that's the place where spirit resides. It's first cause. It's self-existing and it's self-propelling. It's that mother, father, God of that first Genesis. And it's the masculine principle. And Holmes defines the masculine principle as the assertive principle of being, the self-consciousness, the propelling power of spirit, the projective principle of life, impregnating the universal soul with its ideas and concepts, the self-assertive spirit in either God or man. So the middle section, womb as law, this middle section is where the soul resides. It's the creative medium. It's neutral, it's a blind force, and it's the law. It's power and action, and yet it's also passive and receptive. It's our subconscious mind, and it's that race thought. And it's the feminine principle, where the feminine principle resides, where Holmes defines that as the universal soul. In man, the subjective or subconscious intelligence. It's the universal medium or soul, and has been called the womb of nature and the Holy Mother, because it is receptive to the Spirit and is impregnated with divine ideas. It gives birth to the ideas of Spirit and is therefore the feminine principle of nature. And don't we call our mother, our planet, it's Mother Earth. So talking of this creative process, the seed, the soil, and the plant, reminds me of the parable, Matthew 13, where a farmer went out to sow his seed. He was scattering the seed, and some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it didn't have much soil, and it sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But then the sun came up, and the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew and choked the new plants. And still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. So if our seeds are ideas and they fall on the path, I see that as when we share ideas with others and they say, no, you can't do that, or they list all the things that are just in the way, why it's impossible, why it can't happen. Or they steal our ideas. However, whatever happens, the seeds don't take root. I see the rocky, shallow soil places is when we have a great idea, but there's all those things, those ideas that we have about ourselves that don't let it really take root. So the idea withers and quickly dies. The seeds that land in the thorns, those ideas that land in the thorns or the weeds, they don't have any, they take root, they start to grow, but those negative ideas, again, they start, oh, I can't do this. And they're choked out by our negative beliefs. And Jesus and Ernest Holmes repeatedly says, it is done as we believe. And then there's the good soil, and this is the soil this is the thought of abundance. When the soil, our minds, are clear of the birds, the rocks, and the weeds, our ideas produce a crop many times what was sown, 30, 60, 100 times what we sow. So the other day I ran across another quote from Ernest Holmes. Man's outward life is a result of the subjective state of his thought. The thinker is conscious mind, but when he thinks, he lets fall the forms of his thought into subjective mind, which is the universal medium of all thought and action. And as a result of this, the creative medium at once sets to work to produce the thing outlined. So, if our ideas, like seeds, are falling into this creative medium, how do we clear the soil? It's often suggested when we start a new project, whether it's a business idea, a new relationship, or a spiritual practice, that we keep this to ourselves. We don't share it among people that are going to naysay it. And this, to me, is removing the bird problem. We just keep our seeds to ourselves, and those birds won't come along and pick up our seeds and eat them. To get rid of those pesky rocks that don't allow our intentions to take root, I see that spiritual mind treatment is our tool for getting rid of the rocks and boulders, and practitioners like Ann and I are great resources to help you move those boulders of I can't, I'm too old, I'm too poor, I'm too young, I'm too whatever that I'm too belief is that I think really rests in a fear-based problem. I think all those rocks are really rooted in fear. Practitioners are a great resource to help you, through spiritual mind treatment, move those boulders out of your way. Affirmations is another tool that help us clear the weeds that prop up. Okay, we planted some seeds, they're starting to grow, and then we have those little doubts that come into our heads that are like, oh, wait, I can't, it won't, it's not. Affirmations turn us back into the truth. They're those quick little sayings that we tell ourselves, and I think I said this in the Beyond Limits class, is they're those truths about ourselves that we tell until we believe them. And finally, meditation helps us to prepare and maintain our soil for those creative seeds. It was in the silence that Mary received her inspiration, seeing her and hearing her teacher's message and counsel. And it's in the silence that we reunite our body, our mind, to that one universal spirit. On page 115 of The Science of Mind, the soul, Ernest Holmes talks about the soul, and this is S-O-U-L, being the seat of memory, always contains a record of everything that has ever happened to us. These memories as a whole constitute the subjective tendency of the individual life. This tendency can be changed through constant effort and a determined persistency of purpose. So it is through spiritual mind treatment, the use of affirmations, meditation, that we can change these tendencies of less thans or I can'ts into the awesome, blossoming beings that we truly are. Now, Holmes continues in this paragraph to talk about the soul purpose, S-O-U-L, purpose of all people merges more or less, and this creates the soul life of the race, the collective subjectivity of all humanity called, by some, the collective unconsciousness. This collective unconsciousness contains a record of all human events that have ever transpired. We are all more or less subject to this collective thought since it acts as a powerful race suggestion. Now, it comes to me that if we are all individuations of this one mind, when each of us remove the limiting beliefs, the naysayers, and the rocks and the weeds, and we align our mind with that universal intelligence, we're not only clearing our own minds, but we are helping to clear that collective unconsciousness as well. And we have seen this as we look through our history, not only with women's rights, but with human rights as well. There's been an increasing acceptance and of people, regardless of color, culture, sexual, economic, whatever orientation. And our awareness of the planet as a holistic ecosystem is also increasing. And we're recognizing that each of us has a direct impact on the sustainability of our home. And the coronavirus. And the fear that is bringing us into this awareness of just how interconnected humanity itself is. No longer can we think of ourselves as isolated countries, nations. This experience is helping us to bring us to an awareness of our global human community. Some reminder points for myself is spirit is infinite. There's only one. So all of this is happening in God. And so it's all good, despite appearances. There's nothing outside the whole, and spirit cannot destroy itself. Spirit is abundant. There is enough of everything to go around. Now, it's fear that's driving the hoarding that's happening right now. So don't buy into the fear. And yes, lack of toilet paper apparently is a real thing. Luckily, I bought some before I needed it, so a little ahead of the curve. Spirit is creative. Right now, the awareness of how to contain and recover this virus is manifesting in consciousness. And while we continue to keep our minds clear of the rocks and weeds of fear, it is a good idea to keep our bodies well, observing the cleanliness habits and recommendations. And Google had a little five-point thing. Hands, wash them often. Elbows, where you cough, which is why I'm not going to be doing any elbow bumps with y'all either. Face, don't touch it. Feet, keep yours 3 feet apart. And if you feel sick, stay home. It's pretty simple, and it's all common sense. We all know this from any other flu that goes around. So be well. Finally, spirit is love. Locally and globally, there is a coming together happening. My sister in Arizona, after standing in a very long line in the grocery store and letting an elderly woman pass her, talked about buying flowers and handing them out to people that just looked like they needed a flower and needed some love. After seeing 2 elderly women crying in their car outside the grocery store, another friend of mine was talking about organizing how to get necessities, goods and services, goods to these people that are afraid to go out because they're groups of population at risk. And I saw a post from someone living in Italy who talked about, and Italians are very huggy, kissy people. And they're talking about how the Italians are self-quarantining themselves, how they are giving up their passion and love of physical touching culture in light of the greater good. And they're encouraging those around the world to, yes, be a little uncomfortable, but let's shut this thing down. And it's through love that this is happening. So when we remember that there is no separation, when one consciousness is elevated, all those around them are elevated. And I'm reminded that the tide does not lift one boat in the harbor. The tide lifts all the boats. And so may we recognize that we are living in paradise right now, that we were never thrown out. God has never punished us, for why would God punish itself? In eating from the tree of knowledge, we get to play in this world of dichotomies. And we're all coming to remember that we're not separate from our Creator, but that we are made in the image and likeness of Spirit, male and female. We are the reflection of God. And so it is. Thank you. Before I take that into prayer, I wanted to share Home Office, our new spiritual leader, Reverend Dr. Edward Villune, and Dr. Sharon Hudson, I believe, led a prayer circle online on Friday. I was at work and not able to participate, but they published a prayer, and I'd like to just read it, and then I'll take that into treatment, and then we'll have a song. So, prayer for a pandemic. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors, let me get my glasses because this is really blurry. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those that have no safe place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember those who have no home. As fear grips our country, let us choose love. During this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors. And so knowing that Spirit is that whole, perfect and complete oneness, it is the source of our very beingness. It is that love and that joy. It is peace and it is wholeness. It is abundance and it is joyful creativity. And it is this thing called life. It is manifesting itself in infinite form and variety, expressing itself through the earth itself, through the plants and the trees, the insects, the animals, the fish and the birds. It is expressing itself through humanity right now. And as I know that it is expressing itself through humanity in each and every one of us, I know that each of us is a reflection of that divine wholeness. I know that each of us is whole, perfect, and complete right here and right now. And we are that love, that peace, and that abundance. As we move into our day and into this week, we do so with love. We know that we are the carriers of the light. We lift those around us up. We respect and we know that through whatever is happening, we know that it is all happening in the mind of God. And so we take the high road. We let go of those fears that sometimes crop up. And we know that there is just that perfect life unfolding right now. Despite appearances, I know that everything is unfolding perfectly in the mind of God. And that this experience that we are experiencing together is an experience of uplifting. It is uplifting. It is uplifting ourselves, our community, and our planet. We are a coming together back into the whole. We are a coming together of love. We are a coming together in that unity of oneness. And I'm so grateful for knowing this truth, knowing that there is only good happening right now, for there is only God happening right now. There is only Spirit. And I'm so grateful for this philosophy that reminds me of the truth of my being and the truth of your being, the truth of our being. And it's from this joyful gratitude that I release this word into the law of mind, into the womb of law, knowing that it is fertile and it does as we believe. And so in this letting go, I let it be. And so it is. And now we have Dar and Merritt blessing us with the song.
Let me walk to the banks of the river of love, where the current runs deep, baptized in the one, where there's no separation and the light is all we see. Uttering all our differences and truth will set us free. Oh, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. I said, oh, you rock my soul. I said, oh, you rock my soul. I see the blessings of the past. It's time to requalify. Let's not forget, but learn to forgive. God knows we gotta try. It's my responsibility to heal the wounds in me. Compassion, faith, and hope, and love, and peace will set us free. Oh, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. I said, oh, you rock my soul. I said, oh, you rock my soul. I said, oh, you rock my soul.
Thank you. Where are we here? Conscious giving intention. And now is that time that we share our abundant blessings with our center. And I invite you to take your offering, your gift, and hold it in your hand. You can hold it in your heart as we repeat together our blessing. Divine love blesses this gift. It is circulated with love and is returned to me pressed down and overflowing. I am a happy giver and a grateful receiver. Our center is blessed, and so it is. Thank you.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so grateful for all that we have. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so grateful. We are so blessed.
So before I call Scott, who is pulling double duty back there, for announcements, I have a couple of at least one. First, I'd like to welcome any newcomers here. If we have anyone new for the center or new online, I would like to welcome you. If you're here live and in person, we do have welcome packets back on the back table. You're welcome to help yourself to one, and that will give you more information about what Science of Mind and what we do here. My other announcement is Reverend Carolyn Douglas, as our regional support coordinator, a couple weeks ago sent me a very long list of short classes developed If you all don't know, I came from Santa Rosa, so I actually have a real love affair with Reverend Dr. Edward. But she sent me a long list of short classes that are 3 or 4 weeks, some 5 weeks, but the board said keep it to the 3 or 4 week classes. So I have shortened the list. I have titles. And this is going to be an interest list. I'd like you, if you're interested in taking a short class, just put a little tick mark on your top 3 choices so everybody doesn't check all of them. Help me to kind of weed through the list. So this is this part. I have this part here is your best day and time, which is either Thursday 6:30 to 8:30, Saturday mornings 10:30 to 12:30, or Sunday noon to 2 after service. And there's also a spot because I did take sociology, none of the above. So if you could put your 1, 2, and 3, and we'll just kind of see what works for most people. And then the bottom section, in taking in consideration the virus and how this is going to unfold here in our county, if you are interested in taking the classes online via Zoom. It's a simple yes or no. So that would be an option that we can do. And the first class that I would like to start in April is the Bhagavad Gita, the short version. Now, if you're familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, there are many versions. I just got done with the 1,000+ page Paramahansa Yogananda's treatise on the Bhagavad Gita. This is the Gita in about 20 pages and some really great commentary. It's a great introduction. And this class is 3, maybe 4 weeks. The curriculum calls for a chunk of reading with no class follow-up, so I'm kind of looking at that as I go through the book. So I'd like to start that in April, and that's going to be the first thing on the list. I'm going to introduce Scott here, our acting board president, to give us our announcements.
Is it on? Okay. Thank you, Sharon, and that was a great talk. You really knocked it out of the park. Okay, roof sponsorships. There's 4 levels, as we talked about before. Platinum, 1,000, gold, 500, silver, 250. Closer. Maybe it's me. And bronze, 100. We've had generous contributions already. Anything really, regardless of what it is, would be appreciated. So thank you so much. We have a book sale, yard sale, and that is in May 2nd and May 3rd. So if you have anything to donate, I see a few things are starting to arrive now. Most of them that we're putting down in the basement. And look forward to that. If you have trouble bringing anything in and you need help, talk to Janet Shaw. She will arrange to have it picked up. Okay, volunteers. Anita and and help will continue to call to see when people are available so we can get it organized. I would really like to encourage you to volunteer. It is not only is it helping the center, but it feels really good when you're part of something that's bigger than yourself. So if you have any ideas about what you'd like to do to volunteer, then see Anita or see me. All right. Musical talent, anyone that plays a musical instrument or sings and would like to volunteer their talents, please let Merritt know and or Anita. We have a membership meeting coming up. It is on the 22nd, March 22nd, Sunday, yeah. And is that next Sunday, really? Oh my gosh. All right, thanks. So, just know that everybody is welcome. Only members can vote, but we would welcome anybody who would like to participate. We are looking for 3 new directors and or core council members or whatever we call them now. Change is tough, right? And so anyway, if you are so inclined to be a part of that, please get a form. And I think Teresa is one of the people. Yeah, check with Teresa, okay? Bookstore, check out our bookstore for some great books and some great discounts. And e-bulletin, if you're not a part of the e-bulletin, sign up in the back. Security, if you have a key to the building, please see Anita because they have changed the code. We don't want to set the alarm off. And today's our practitioner, Ann, and and Sharon, of course. So if you have anything that you would like to work through, then see them. And I think I'm done.
You're welcome to circle up, but we're going to refrain from holding hands, or you can just stand where you are.
Always. Is it on? It's on. Okay. Blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. Blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. Woo, that was good.
All right, may we go out in blessings knowing that we are the love, joy, wholeness. May we be blessed. May we be well. And so it is.